Today, the Supreme Court of the United States expressly took away a constitutional right from the American people that it had already recognized. They didn't limit it, they simply took it away. That's never been done to a right so important to so many Americans. But they did it. It's a sad day for the court and for the country.
Contradiction. Yesterday, the states cannot make laws governing the constitutional right to bear arms. And today, they're saying the exact reverse, that the states can overturn a constitutional right for 50 years, a constitutional right for a woman having the right to choose. The hypocrisy is raging, but the harm is endless.
And welcome to a special spot episode of News from the Pew, where we take the news of the day and bring it to you in a form that is digestible. I am your host, Rick Barrett, and I am joined on this episode with Mr. Steve Cunningham, Fawaz Yazzie, and Mr. Jonathan Arrington. And this is a very specifically focused episode because yesterday the Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision that the right to murder babies was never a right to begin with Justice Clarence Thomas eviscerating any kind of legal argument to it. And of course, all of us, rightfully so, should have celebrated that and enjoyed that a very hard-won victory. But the question that has brought us together on this episode is, well, what is next? Because there is a lot of confusion, which the left is trying to do right now. They're trying to sow the confusion that abortion is now banned nationwide, which the four of us wish was the case. But unfortunately, we are now back to a states' rights issue. Where my state of Texas, I know Fawaz's state of Kentucky, and other states are now putting into effect trigger laws that will allow abortion to be illegal. California, Rhode Island, Vermont, New York, Delaware, Illinois, these states can still murder children. So the battle was won yesterday, and I think a lot of people are mistaking it for the war. And unfortunately, the war for the unborn, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear about it, it's actually just beginning. So that's the issue that we're going to talk about, specifically what you can do in your area. Even if your state, like my great state of Texas, has 2 laws on the books, actually, that outlaw abortion. What can you do to continue that pro-life culture in your state? And if you live in a state that is pro-death, what can you do to fight that at your level? So we will, let's see. I think we're going to go Jonathan, Fawaz, and Steve. So obviously, the first question I'm going to throw at you guys, the first thing, reaction to the decision, what the mood is in your state, and we'll go with those two right now. John, if you want to start us off. You're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. The mood in the state as a whole, it seems like, from what I can tell, I followed some of the Florida stuff ever since DeSantis came out with a statement within the hour after it was made public. It seems to be pretty split down the middle. I mean, there's still a lot of very hardcore liberals in Florida. Despite recent realignments and things of that sort, and how the guy who almost got voted in as governor instead of DeSantis, was arrested after basically helping someone to OD and stuff like that. So there's a lot of folks who cheer evil in Florida as well, especially in some of the bigger cities. So it's been a little bit hit or miss there. I try to follow the state in which I grew up, South Carolina, and they've been mostly positive. But then you got folks in the hubs there like Greenville, Columbia, and Charleston, South Carolina, that are furious, and enraged and being destructive already. So there's things like that to deal with. But my overall impression was just that it's been so good for demonstrating who stands with what principles, and besides the Catholics, whom we already, I think, had pretty well pegged, like Biden and Pelosi. I was mentioning with Steve earlier that you've got folks like Dave Portnoy, who had come out really against the forced vaccinations, and some other folks just in alternative media who have been good on several other issues that had seemed important at the time, and were important. The COVID stuff, the even kind of fighting a sensible ground in what's going on in various wars throughout the world. I mean, those are important issues, but when these folks came out with just truly diabolical statements about Roe v. Wade, and so it's kind of letting you know who our true ideological friends are. And so I think that's also a good thing, because it reminds us that really without the faith, you're bound to you're bound to fall in something somewhere. So
Yeah, absolutely. Fawaz, I know your state is one of the states that has a trigger law, so abortion is now illegal in the great state of Kentucky. So I'm sure you guys are celebrating the decision a little bit more than some other states.
Yeah, the only thing I was worried about is maybe Louisville, because that's where most of the leftists are. Some parts of Lexington. Other than that, Kentucky is really red. Our state legislatures are extremely pro-life. There's not much of a difference between our governor Beshear and Newsom in their ideologies. If he had his way, we would beat California. But fortunately for us, they've really taken his emergency powers away and kept him in check, like they're supposed to. Kept his powers in check. So that's great that we have our state legislatures. And I don't see us being the type of state that's going to go out and riot and loot because of this. Only time I see it is if we run out of Mountain Dew, which they love around here. That's all. Other than that, the thing about the left is what's interesting about them is, if you remember back when Prop 8 was happening in California, I was there, and we voted no. I think no on Prop 8. We didn't want to legalize the homo heresy. And when they lost that battle, they did the next best thing for themselves. They went to the Supreme Court. The left, for the longest time, wanted to legislate their morality onto the country. And when it was on the ballot, they would lose. So they went to the Supreme Court, and they got the victory there. Well, I think in the past 2-3 years or so, they've kind of started to lose a little bit of that momentum from SCOTUS. And now they're really heading towards soft institutions like corporations. Like you saw Dick's Sporting Goods yesterday coming out saying we'll pay $4,000 to move you across state to kill your child. Amazon's doing it, Uber's doing it, Google's doing it. That's really their next battle. So with us is, if we put pressure on these soft institutions, because that's really their last option, is to try to change the minds of Americans through these institutions and corporations. If we can put pressure on these institutions, like we did, like DeSantis did with Disney, we know that we can go toe to toe with a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and get them to back off. The left will have nothing left other than the fact, and then like professional children, they're going to come out and start to riot like they do, and with more fashion. So really, like Steve has been saying for the longest time, and you guys have been saying, the this has just begun. We're in this is a playing field that's just been completely, it's 50-50. Let's go after the other states. Now they're going to come after our states. They're going to put their legislatures, and they're going to play the long game and try to overturn some of these to get all 50 states to approve abortion. We're going to play the other side of the game. We're going to get all the other states to cancel all abortions like we have in Kentucky. So one day we'll make California a trigger state as well. So this is where the battle really has begun, and it's up to us. And later on, I'll try to give my ideas of what we could do as pro-lifers.
We lose Rick?
I think so.
I know he'll probably just say, Steve, what you got? Okay. Great. Thanks for asking.
Steve, what's your opinion?
I was waiting for the question. Yes, just like Enoch and Jonathan has been saying, it goes back to the acting locally, thinking locally on this. All right, great. It went back to the states, which it should have been from the beginning, and what we were talking about forever. I wrote my first blog on the website was on states and abortion, getting it back to the states. Dr. Ron Paul was talking about this all the time. Get it back to the states, you'll be able to kill it. Nobody was wanting to talk. I used to just drive me batty when I'd see all the pro-lifers out there talking about the federal ways, DC, March for Life, bunch of money going to that thing, and no one ever focusing on getting it out into the states. I mean, you'd have states, the local pro-life march in like Charlotte or something, and it wasn't that big. It was all right, but it wasn't that big. Where you could focus on that, you saw South Carolina in 2021 going after a heartbeat bill. Louisiana was in the news a couple years ago. Many states were in the news, but nobody was applauding it. It seemed like it was always, oh yeah, great, Louisiana's doing this. Well, what's going on in DC? Let's get back into DC. Our focus is always on throwing the prayer mats out, like I said, and just it's all about the feds, all about that 10-mile square in DC. Forget DC on everything. It's 18 enumerated powers. They finally got one right on bringing it back. It's called federalism. Yes. Now the ruling yesterday did not ban abortion in total. It's back to the state level. And again, here's the map. Where's it at? There it is right there. There's the map of the states. So if you're in, I mean, it's mainly the South, except for Virginia and North Carolina. We're working on that. I saw the AG today tweet out that, so we're going to make sure abortion is going to be in there for women's in North Carolina. Okay, well, that's perfect. Now we should be focused on the states, as both of them just got done saying the war has just begun. The fight just begun. Great. Celebrate. Joy. Smoke went up. Light went up. Partied yesterday. There was a clip at a Bull Durham. I was mentioning to somebody where Nuke LaLoosh had a great inning. I think he went 3 up, 3 down. And Crash, who was played by Kevin Costner, the catcher, who has all this professional baseball background, and he's basically guiding him into nurturing him to becoming a player, looks at him and goes, the moment's over. Get back into the game. You got the next inning. Okay, we won last inning. We had a great last inning. The moment's over. Still smile, still be joy, but get focused, because I guarantee the enemy is focused on the red states right now and the gray ones. You look at where is it right here? Was it one of these right here I had? Here's Gruesome Newsom. Abortion is legal in California. It will remain that way. Yeah, it will remain that way if nobody in California does a thing about it. How many Catholics are in California? You should be activated to figure out how to flip California. Should have been done yesterday, but this should give you a little bit more oomph to be able to do that. Washington, same thing. Oregon, same thing. Rhode Island, 3 or 4 weeks ago, said they were going to codify Roe v. Wade. Okay, Catholics in Rhode Island, what are y'all doing? Is it impossible to get in the government of Rhode Island to be able to fix that, to be able to change it? That should be your number one priority, besides converting Rhode Island, is to getting in there and flipping it or flipping it to a pro-life area, getting rid of abortion. South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Iowa, Missouri, etc. South Dakota, Kristi Noem comes out saying abortion's dead here. Oklahoma has the bill about the only thing they can get aborted is cases of rape or incest. And in those bills, you have to produce a police report. So you just can't go in and say, hey, I got raped, kill my baby. That's what Dr. Nathanson talked about when he, in his book, Boarding America, he writes about that. Is that when they brought up the exceptions of rape and incest, shockingly, miraculously, he says, rape went sky high, even though there was nobody getting hurt. Rape just went sky high in his areas to kill the babies. So in this case, you have to produce a full report. You can't lie about it anymore. So, but what are they going to do? If we sit back and put our legs up on the lazy boy or the ottoman and say, hey, we won, happy days are here again, give it 10 years and you'll be a pro-death state because no one's doing anything. So you got to be focused and make sure that you're vigilant the whole time. What's the whole idea? If 7 demons come out, you exercise 1 demon, 7 demons, the house gets cleared, 7 demons will come back in. That will happen at the state level. Or shoot, what's to say that this doesn't happen down the road at the in the federal level? I mean, there's no saying that, hey, 10 years from now, Thomas is gone. What happens to him? I don't know. Maybe old age died or something like this. Who knows if another conservative guy ends up croaking? Just saying. But what happens if there's a court case that goes back to the Supreme Court and they bring federal abortion back in? Maybe they try to codify it this time. This is something not to just, oh, well, we're good. Happy days are here again. Like I said, this is every day for the rest of your lives and your children's life. You should be vigilant. Get involved. Start getting active. If you don't want to run, find somebody to run. If you don't want to find someone to run, teach somebody how to run. If you don't want to do that, help somebody to run. Give money to pregnancy centers. Give money to somebody that's running. Help promote somebody's run. Buy the book that Christian Social Principle here that Sophia Press put out. This will talk about what is a right, what is a law, gets into communism. What is it? Gets into everything. What is a democracy? Learn what this is so you can become a good citizen of this. Not citizen. I was going to say citizen of the state. That sounds terrible. But a good citizen that you're supposed to be engaged in your everyday government anyways, especially local. Figure it out. Get somebody in there at all levels because, like I said, if not, we're going to lose this in the long run.
Yeah. I apologize. As you can see, I'm under construction right now. I'll figure it out.
Your cable bill.
I should actually pay it. But the idea of relying solely on the judiciary is a recipe for failure. And I think we all know that. We've all said it in one way, shape, or form, that it is a recipe for failure. We really need to start talking about what we as Catholics can do. And I know Steve just mentioned it, and I think we can go in there. The power of the pregnancy centers and what they can do to do this one thing. Now that we have this victory back at the state level, it really is on us as Catholics and Christians to promote the culture of life. And I think right now, as we are relying on the judiciary, we're relying on law instead of what is good, true, and beautiful. The good, true, and beautiful is the culture of life. And I think Catholic churches in your communities, should either reach out to pregnancy centers, maybe do drives once a month to collect things or maybe start something of that nature. I think that is a huge asset that we, by not getting involved and having those groups, in addition, like Steve said, find somebody who wants to run to defend it at that level. I don't think we can ignore that, but I also think culturally we need to get in the fight and not just rely on the judicial, because we always rely on the judicial and the executive process, but we don't get our hands, quote unquote, dirty in the cultural fight. Thoughts, Jonathan?
I'll say this one thing. I agree that our focus with you guys about where our focus should be, but I'm really not on board with saying we should ignore DC, and I'll just give a brief explanation of why. As Catholics, I think we should take DC seriously. There's a long theological and historical explanation for why the Catholic Church set up shop in Rome, which was not just the civil capital of the time, but also a cesspool, as it has been throughout a lot of human history, even with the popes living there. But as a church, you don't give up on those cesspools. I'm not saying I would encourage anyone ever to move to DC or even to visit it if you have kids. But I'm not comfortable with just kind of banging down DC and say forget about DC, because DC, whether we like it or not, still has a lot of power. Okay, and so we can't just give up the fight there too. Now, should the majority of our efforts be focused on the states? Yes, and I think that's what you guys basically mean. I just want to be careful with our language because, I think there's historical precedent for taking care of the sewage, the places of sewage as well, because you got one of the key sites in Rome is the Cloaca Maxima, the great kind of sewage pit there in Rome. DC is that, and so we just have to convert DC. There are actually some really good priests in the archdiocese there who can help with that. And if they had a better cardinal archbishop, they'd probably be having even an easier time at that. But we got to support them in so many ways, but especially with our prayers. But the other thing I'd say that we Catholics have to do is, I think it was Pelosi who, or it was one of the Catholics, I'm almost positive, but I'm pretty sure it was Pelosi who threw out this one-liner that really encapsulates, I think, where we should go. But believe it or not, I mean, sometimes God puts the right words in some evil person's mouth like that. But whether it was her or not, someone said they've chosen, talking about the court, they've chosen politics over principle and religion over rights, or vice versa. The way she put it, religion over rights, politics over principle. And of course, it's the exact opposite. As a matter of fact, the SCOTUS, they actually chose the principles of right judgment, at least the way the American court system is set up and the way the SCOTUS is set up in particular. They chose the principles on which that court has always supposed to have been based, and went with it, and acted according not just to the right principles of judgment there in that particular branch of the government, but even just of you could say of morality as well, which and everything in the judiciary should still be under the branch of the principles of ethics. And then the fact about religion over rights, no matter how you feel about the founding documents of the U.S., the idea that there are certain inalienable rights, whether or not that's the right term to be used or not, I mean, we could have a good discussion about that. But there are rights to life, and it's clearly by the findings of modern science, and you could say even of philosophy, that is clearly a distinct human person. When that's a male or a female with DNA that's distinct, clearly distinct from the mother or the father there in the womb, and so that person has a right to live until or if God forbid that person were to do something that would, be worthy of a death penalty of any sort. But these same people say they're against the death penalty, almost to a T. These pro-deathers are against the death penalty. So tell me again how this clearly distinct human person should ever have the death penalty passed on him or her because of the choice of another person before this person's even gotten out to be able to make a single actus humanus, or human act, on which the person could be judged. So yeah, politics over principle, religion over rights. Thank you, Nancy, for giving us the exact, I think, way to go forward. No, it was clearly principle over anything else, and it was clearly recognizing the rights of a surely distinct human person. So thank you, Nancy. I don't know what else to say.
Fawaz, what do you think about that? Do you think that we should, respond to his comments on that idea about DC? I'll throw myself out. I think DC should be gone. Let it fall off into the ocean and let God do with it what he will. But John does bring up a point. We're still in this union as of right now, and to ignore it is to ignore it at our own peril. What are your thoughts on that issue there?
It depends. I can see both of your points, and I like Jonathan's point. There's something that's worthy to be saved. We can, we ought to save it, especially if it has so much power. Now, if we got in there, had power, and actually made it small, which is supposed to be, because I think according to the Constitution that DC should only be there to protect the rights that God has already given us, and also the military. So if it can be fixed in a way where we can, because if we're going to infiltrate, not so much infiltrate, but if we're going to go and fix our own states, and if there's a way for us to get somebody in there, to get senators and to get a House and a president in there that are pro-life, very Catholic, then we can shift DC to a very Catholic. And then institute Christ the King of this country and the world. So it's a cause worth fighting for. I just don't know if this country. I think this country is so divided. Everybody uses DC as a stronghold, as their weapon to punish the other person or to push the other person a certain way or push their agenda across the country. But of course, we think we have it right, and I know we do, and mainly because we're just trying to apply the natural law across the country. I think that's one of the biggest problems that we see in the left. If you look at the new religion that they're presenting, I'm not, it's not even ideology or science; it's a religion under the guise of science. If you look at what they're presenting to us, it's everything is against nature. You don't want to eat natural meat. There's no natural cycle. It's all petri dish meat made in a lab. You know, a human person is no longer a human person. It's an attack against the natural law. It's an attack against nature. If you look at its ideology from top to bottom, it's completely against nature, and we're trying to present the opposite of that. Like, this is how we're supposed to live. Human nature is fixed in a way. So these are the competing ideologies, and everybody uses. I can see Steve's point. Everybody's using DC to push their agenda against the other country. Where I think if we focus on our local states and our local communities, we could build from that way and up, and then get to DC eventually, if it's fixable. So that's my comment for what Jonathan said, which actually he made some pretty good points.
Steve, you got a clip for us before I allow you to answer, before I get banned off the internet again? Of course, you're muted too. So while he's muted and getting that video ready, I guess what I'll say is, to Steve,
the majority opinion today that he was just hyperventilating about said specifically that what you just heard Biden say is not true. They addressed it explicitly, and we're quoting. Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. Got that? So actually, this does not allow them to ban condoms or gay marriage or interracial marriage or whatever fear-mongering talking point. It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Whatever lie they're telling you is just that. It's a lie. It says it right in the decision. Ooh. Harmeet Dillon read the decision. She's this country's premier civil rights lawyer. She's CEO of the Center for American Liberty. She joins us tonight. Harmeet, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks,
I wonder, even by their standards, where you just say, like, literally whatever it takes and just lie with a straight face, how can they, this just came out today, this opinion, they've seen it, how can Biden say that?
Well, Biden is, as usual, about 50 years behind the curve, and so the privacy right that he talked about in Roe v. Wade isn't even the current law. So as this opinion points out, Roe based its reasoning on this privacy right under the First, Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments. But the most recent law, Casey, which refined this case, really relies on only one aspect of the Constitution, which is substantive due process under the 14th Amendment, okay? And so what they tried to do in that Casey decision is sort of wrap abortion into that jurisprudence, which includes all of those other aspects. But as this opinion points out, abortion is fundamentally different. Unlike the marriage cases, unlike these other fundamental rights cases, only abortion stops a human life. And that makes it absolutely unique in the law. And that is why a different analysis needs to apply to it. Now, of course, Justice Thomas did say in his concurring opinion that the jurisprudence that underlies these other cases under substantive due process is also deeply flawed. And you can believe both things. You can believe that people should have the right to contraception. You can believe that people should have the right to abortion. And you can believe that predicating those rights on a flawed 14th Amendment analysis is garbage jurisprudence. And so that's where it needs to go now. It needs to go back to the states. And Tucker, as your whole show has been pointing out, it's much easier for Democrats to create fear and hype and riot. It's also cheaper to make laws by pressuring a handful of justices than by passing laws in the states that the majority supports. And so this is a very sound decision, and I am not losing any sleep over losing any fundamental rights here as a basis of this decision, Tucker.
Well, and by the way, Democrats said they were going to codify Roe in the Congress. They were going to pass a federal law basically restating Roe, and they couldn't even agree on what a pregnant person was. That's the reason it didn't get through. It's like, do you think they can pass a federal law codifying Roe? Why don't they try? I don't understand.
Well, we know why, Tucker. As science has advanced and as people have become more enlightened about this issue and the harms of abortion, there's no majority for a abortion law like Roe. Roe itself is not even the law. But even for Casey, the majority of Americans do not believe that there should be abortion after a fetal heartbeat, after the fetus can feel pain. And that's at the 15-week level of the Mississippi law. The fetus has a developed heart and eyelids and can suck her thumb. That is not something, or a fetus that most Americans believe should be subject to termination at whim. And so they cannot get that law passed. That's why they're hyperventilating and freaking out over here.
Now I'm muted too. So very interesting to watch but not surprising, the fear mongering that's coming out. But I just want to roll this into the question before I toss it to you, Steve. Without DC, you don't get one Donald John Trump. And without Donald John Trump, you don't get the 3 justices. Without the 3 justices, you don't get today. So if we ignored it, we would have had Hillary Clinton on there, and it would have been like 105 justices on the court, and we'd all be in Google Logs by now. So there is credence to paying attention to DC while we're in this wretched union.
Now, there's I mentioned a couple episodes we did a couple weeks ago. There's got to thank Donald Trump for this, because it's because of him that we got three SCOTUS people. I mean, again, just like what John was talking about. All right, yes. Am I a fan of DC? No. I hope it goes back to the swamp it came from. But this is the hand we're dealt with. We got to play with those cards. So, all right, at that time, that's the way you had to go for it, and that's how he played it, and it worked. Now, if he didn't do it, like you said, if we didn't have Trump, we would have had Hill Dog, and we wouldn't be talking about this today. There's no chance this would be talking about this today. They would have come down and squashed Mississippi for what they were doing. They would have squashed Texas. The thing is getting our mindsets. It's the education of things, just like anything else. How you convert somebody is turning somebody to something else. And in politics-wise, how do we convert people out of thinking the U.S. is a country? It's not a country. It's a federal republic. But we're just programmed to think that. We're programmed to think D.C., D.C., D.C. We can still have D.C. if we went back to how it was the original intent, and the colony, the 13 original states were looking at it, going, the states had power over the feds. Obviously, there's a few things, 18 enumerated powers from the feds. No, you think there's 18 enumerated powers today? No, there's 18,000. Just look at the tax code. We're probably doing something illegal right now. We don't even know it. I mean, they say, well, it's the joke that you're breaking 4 federal laws at one given time. It's bloated. So, yeah, you have to brain it in. Obviously, now, yeah, if we converted that and it trickled down, that would be huge. We need to start doing that. I mean, how many years we haven't done that? And that's probably because, the whole idea of Americanism at the time. Why did Franklin recommend the first Bishop Carroll? Is because that the story goes that when they walked from Philadelphia to Quebec and get excommunicated by the Bishop of Quebec, which Carroll's excommunication apparently lifted 15 years ago, is that, quote, Franklin said, he never spoke to me about religion. So from the start, and you can go into Sir Lance Hertz's book of a Star Spangled Heresy, we're not very good about converting anybody in these states from the beginning. Now, I wish it wasn't that way. I mean, you look at the martyrs of Florida, New Mexico, things like that. I'm trying to get a thing done on this. I got the martyrs book from, was it 1457 or something like that? I can't remember the exact year. They came here to convert this area. Spanish Florida was a Catholic country. The whole South, the whole line over to Texas. That's why Georgia was there, to put a buffer to keep the Catholics from going up the coast. So we went west along the Gulf Coast. We can get back to that. Colomb talks about, in his book, American Empire or Puritan's Empire, about how the Cajuns in Louisiana and New Orleans cried when they saw the French flag go down and the U.S. flag risen up, because they saw what was coming on this. They got sold out basically for because of the French Revolution, which is really a big root of all these problems. Yes, we need to convert every area, like Don Livingston, who's an Eastern Orthodox guy with the Abbeville Institute. He's got like 7 or 8 Catholics in that group with him. He talks about, we got to break this thing up and we got to convert it. Now, down the road, will DC be there? Probably not. Hopefully this right here will get the West Coast to say, I'm out. We'll get New York and the Northeast to go, I'm out. I mean, the last couple SCOTUS things for New York went against New York. We had that argument about federalism the other day. And that's what Pelosi did. That's why I played Pelosi. The hypocrisy for Thursday was, hey, we're a bunch of nationalists. The feds can tell the states what they can do. The next day, they go, the states have the power. The feds can't tell the states what to do. They gave the states the power back. So what is it? New York got Dutch door on that one. They just had the feds go into New York and tell New York, you can't do this with your weapons. Whether we like that or not. That was New York's rule. That was the New York citizens' problem. That ain't a federal problem. That should not be a federal, or you're going to get blanket statements across the board. That's for a future thing. Now we're all of a sudden the nationalists who were hating on me on Thursday were jacked and became federalists overnight. Thanks be to God, because hey, Roe just got killed and went back to the states. Federalism will work, as Dr. Gutzman talks about it. We need to enact that for once and play it, because it's never really been enacted. It's always been, hey, what the feds can do for me, what Big Brother can do for me, how's Obama's money going to do for me? What can you look at the presidential thing? What are you going to do for these guys? What's the correct answer? What we should be saying is nothing. Go play golf. Wish Trump should have played more golf. Brandon should take more bike lessons so he doesn't fall off it. Get him out of the White House. Do less. Less is more in this situation, because they're not supposed to have this much power, as was it Alexander Hamilton talked about in the ratifications. He goes, let's just go have an elected king, because that's what you're going to get out of the Constitution. And
well, to be fair, Hamilton was a monarchist anyway. He wanted to be a monarch. So.
He wanted it. Yeah, he wanted exactly what they just got done fighting. And they all laughed and go, you're an idiot. But he was right on, eventually we'll get an elected king. Yeah. Now we got to get that mindset back to the state level. And so like DeSantis, for example, he could just be king, president, whatever.
You said it. You said king. You said king.
King. Hey, how many Catholics out there say we want monarchy? But then they don't want it when it comes in actual practice. It goes back into what's his face, Joseph Schumpeter, the famous quote from him saying, "People love freedom. They like the sound of it. They like how it rings in their hearts. But the actual practice of it, they really don't care much."
Give me King DeSantis any day of the week, baby. Give me King DeSantis, House DeSantis, just a big old middle finger as his crest, and that will be fine. It'll be great to go. So, yeah. Get back into it there, Steve.
That's really it. I mean, that DC is what we're playing with, but yeah, we need to start thinking, reordering ourselves to decentralization on everything. I mean, the bloatedness. If you want to fix anything, it's got to be decentralized.
The problem, and you mentioned it offhand, is the flag. Look what happened during Trump's term with Colin Kaepernick. The absolute storm over the flag. And it's people that never served that are just so offended if you don't stand and salute. Here's something you may not like about when I do go to events, because I'm kind of a hermit now. But even before that, I don't stand for the flag. I don't stand for the anthem. And my saying was, I don't stand in for an anthem for a country that murdered 60 million babies. I'm not really here for that. But there are so many people that are down for that anthem, down for the flag, down for the F-16 flyover, and that is the only reason they want to keep the country together. Because America, and we have the flag and the things. It was like, what are the other things? I don't know, football, and like if you ever saw Team America at the end of there, like hot dogs, baseball, the Gap, like these are the things that we're fighting for. Fast food, the old Jon Stewart joke when he went to the Holy Land, and they're like, this is the Wailing Wall, where all this history is like, I'm from America, land of the Whopper. Like, what is the cultural impact that we're fighting to keep together? And that's probably the first way you can get back to getting people like, do you care about the US, or do you care about Florida or Kentucky or North Carolina or Texas or whatever? Because that's where you live. And that's where you deal with those things.
Yeah, look at that as patria, as your homeland where you grew. Like I love South Carolina. That was my homeland. When I was in Colorado, I felt like I was in a foreign country. It wasn't me. The culture's different.
Well,
The site
technically, if you go there now, you would be in a foreign country.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I have nothing in California. I remember spending a weekend out there going, this is not us. This is not where I'm from. And it's the food, the culture, the people, all that. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. People thought I was in the military because I just said yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I said, no, I'm from the South. The South's different. We look at the states like that. We look at our flag like that. It's something proud, a pride thing on there. I mean, if state of South Carolina or now North Carolina, I still feel like a foreigner across the border. If South Carolina had an Olympic team, man, I'd be jacked about that. The USA Olympics, hey, this guy's from Minnesota. Great. Give me somebody from Waynesboro or Murray's Inlet or Cowpens. I mean, if somebody from Cowpens was in the Olympics, man, they'd be a hero overnight just for making the.
To be fair, the USA Olympic team is like 75% Texan, and then the rest of y'all can.
But that's what I'm going with. I mean, I don't. If I go overseas, which I've never been, I probably won't. But if someone asks, "Where are you from?" North Carolina. When people say America can't make it, well, what do you mean by America? North America, South America, Central America? When did the U.S. of America take the trademark of having America? I mean, America's bigger than us, but we look just like people are talking about the consecration. And no offense, not trying to smash that, but people are going, "Hey, this is the fruits of the consecration." How you know? Just because the U.S. just took out Roe, which they're still killing babies in other states, and Ireland still has it, all of Europe still has it. What's going on? Is the U.S. the center of the universe? It's a really weird mindset on that. To me, war is still going on, people dying everywhere. But the consecration worked because of this. I mean, maybe. I mean, there was fruits from the JP2 thing when the communism went down with the wall. Could be a little bread that come down, but I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like I just got this feel in my head saying that we're not gonna be that active in a couple weeks. We're fervent right now, but give it 3 or 4 weeks we'll be like, oh well, great. Let everyone else do it. Kind of like not in my backyard, but someone else go take care of it. It's that line, Augustine. Heretics are zealous while Catholics are lazy, or Fulton Sheen. Russia has all the fire but no truth. We got all the truth but no fire. And we need that fire, and we just need to keep that thing going if we're going to win this.
Yeah. Good. Well said, Jonathan. The idea is, if you want to take whatever Steve said, but I'll set you off with this. The idea of, I mean, Floridians are very proud of their state. Do they really care about being a part of a union? Or, I mean, the idea, especially post-COVID, the Florida has really emerged with its own identity, this freedom identity and all this other kind of stuff, even though you're like, not so much. But your thoughts to any of these things, and the idea of really getting at the heart of trying to dislodge people from the blobistan that is America.
I mean, the experience I have with Florida is kind of limited because I've only been here 1 year, so I hesitate to speak too authoritatively about it. I've already seen some of my preconceived notions about it corrected with a little bit more experience. But I mean, off the bat, it seems to me that like Steve mentioned South Carolina, where I grew up as well. I grew up about 45 minutes away from where he grew up, but I think people in general that I grew up with tended to stay in South Carolina. So I think it'd be a little bit easier to talk about, some of the smaller southern states where that kind of, at least the prevalency of economic mobility, and then going out and, tons of people moving to a different state for business or whatever else. Not very common among most of the folks I graduated high school with, for instance. Whereas here in Florida, I mean, there are a fair number of people like at the local trad parish here that are native Floridians and have been here for a while, but there are a lot of people who are transplants. So I don't know. Every once in a while, I kind of have to pinch myself and just and remind myself, kind of wake up a bit from somewhat of the bubble that is, your average trad parish. There aren't a lot of people who see things the way we do. We got to try to bring more people to see the rationale behind the different things that we're promoting. The you could say the rationale and the health of it, how it's eventually going to be for their greater good, for their children's greater good. But I mean, yeah, I'm all for what you guys are saying, dislodging from DC and all of that. I just and I don't think that it's impossible that some great things like that can actually happen. I'm just always reminded of how few we are right now, and so I don't know. I don't have a ton of recommendations other than just you try to find a place where you can fit in with like-minded people there, and especially a great parish, because the word parish in Greek means basically like it's a home away from home. It's a pilgrim's home, and so there's a lot to that. I mean, patria, yeah, I'm all for being patriotic about wherever you are, but I'll be honest with you guys. Maybe I'm the odd one out on this. I do feel kind of a bit of patriotism just for the nation as a whole, much more for the Southeast where I grew up, and now much more for Florida, the Carolinas, where most of my family lives, Georgia. But at the same time, I don't feel completely, because I've lived out of the last 20 years, I've lived 10 of those years in Europe. Actually, no, 11 of those years in Europe. I mean, to a certain extent, I feel, pretty attached to the U.S. whenever I get back. Even if I get back at JFK or, the monster airport that is basically its own city there in Atlanta.
I think you're the only person in the history of the world, Jonathan, that's happy to be at JFK Airport. I'll just let you know that.
That's why I thought it'd be a pretty decent explanation of how I'm touched. I don't mind being greeted by no one who natively speaks English, but welcomes me back into JFK, and not a single native English speaker here, but I'm happy to be here.
You're welcome back, Jonathan. We are very happy to have you. I love the New York Yankees. They are my favorite squadron. Hello. I'm sorry if you're, it's funny. Shut up. Whatever. Who cares? Flaws. Now, I want to throw one thing back at John. We'll go away from dislodging from DC. Just the idea of hammering home state, your state's ability to operate within the Fed, right? Steve's mentioned it too. Just make it smaller. Just make DC smaller, or just increase the power of the state of Florida or Texas or Kentucky or North Carolina. I mean, isn't that, instead of just being crazy like me and like Texas, woo, we're going to secede and all that kind of stuff, maybe in your area, starting in your parish and growing out, saying, listen, man, the flag is cool, everything's great, but abortion is illegal in this state. But what can we do now to continue to steal or take back rightfully the powers that we should have? Kind of like the way DeSantis is doing with things like immigration. Texas should not have to ask permission from the feds. We should have the biggest wall in the history of mankind, with landmines and Gatling guns, patrolled by Apaches. Like that's what we want. But we can't do that because Joe Biden's up there sniffing ice cream and says that everybody can come through. And so just real quick, your response to, I'll give you, all right, maybe the secede argument doesn't work, but how do we dislodge people from, lack of a better term, worshiping the American flag and starting to promote the idea of the Florida flag and the Florida governor and being proud? And you guys are proud of them, but what happens, to keep that going and that regard, moving away from the secession question or the independence question and more just the more autonomy for the states? That could be something as well.
I think basically all of the kind of non-mainstream media folks, the folks we listen to in alternative media, they have, I think, personally, I'm convinced, the only solution to the problem, because as long as DC has control of the Fed, as long as our means of exchange for food and for housing and for clothing, I mean, it's basically shelter, clothing, and food, as long as they have the control of that, and more people have moved away from farms, just talking about sheer numbers here. I know that Fawaz has moved back to an area where he can raise his own food, but I mean, just in great numbers, most of us are in these urban areas. Until or if we can flip that around so that our reliance on the dollar for just taking care of the needs of daily life is not so great. I don't see how we even start with kind of these local pushes, because basically DC can just at their command. I know they're not the actual ones printing the money, but at their command, have money printed and given over to the powers of evil. And I mean, we're not guilty of that worst of sins, that the love of money being the root of all evil. But I mean, it's the means of exchange of goods, and without those goods, I mean, we don't survive. The church, is going to be severely hampered as well. So there's got to be, I think, some sort of, in the classical sense of the word, like an economic revival. We've got to get back to exchanging things, bartering, and the different things that Corbett and others that we follow on alternative media have been promoting. Because otherwise, I think DC is going to continually be able to rope us back in. So I'd say that's the way to build up the local environment, is to take care of one another and figure out ways that the thing that they're throwing back in our face, that then take care of the mothers. All right, well, we've got to have the means to be able to do that, and then be able to say, well, yes, see, we took care of these mothers who needed some help, and we did it because we're back. We've got our means of production here. We've got our way of raising food here. So that's my thought right off the bat. And thanks for getting me back focused on really what we should be there, Rick.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my job. When I'm here, when my thing works, that's kind of my job, is to keep the conversation going. So, Fawaz, you're in a rural area. Obviously, when the feds come knocking, you're like, yeah, you can keep on moving. And that's kind of the idea, is that self-reliance and the promotion of your state. Like, you're very proud of your state. You moved there. You've been there for a while, and you've recently said the response to the people around you, with your family, has been amazing. And the problem I see is that the rural versus urban divide is the big key, kind of like what Jonathan was saying, because you guys can take care of yourself out there. People in the cities cannot. But you don't have that problem except in Louisville and Lexington, right? So how do you continue, or what are you guys doing in that state? What have you noticed, being new to the state of Kentucky, how they promote individualism and how they promote the more of the I hate this phrase, but pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, and not being dependent on the government at any level?
It's a great question. I mean, if you don't mind, I'll share a short story here.
Sure.
Now, coming from California, everybody in California thinks California is the greatest state ever. But I heard nothing but complaints from Californians living in California. When I came here to Kentucky, I was astonished at how the pride of this state. People love Kentucky here. People always say, I've gone to other states, I always come back. There's a sense of community, family here, love of neighbor that I haven't seen anywhere else. I never experienced the South before until now, South, Midwest, whatever you want to call it. There's a sense of that. Now, in my personal opinion, I share a short story. I went out and got a shed. I wanted an office away from the house when I'm working, so I got a shed. That was the guy was 2 minutes away from my house. He was selling it. He was moving. He gave me a great deal. Just shook his hand, and I was like, hey, this is what I can offer you. He took it. Trying to find a guy to move my shed. Out in California, you could call 500 different companies, sign paperwork, draw blood, give your social security number before they move it. Red tapes everywhere. I was at Walmart, and this trailer pulls next to me, this big trailer, and I just popped my head. I said, hey, do you move sheds? And he said, yes, I do. I said, give me your phone number. I'll call you. I call him the next day. He's like, for $100, I'll go move it for you. This is a gigantic shed. So just the idea of having that small town, that small Americana community that here in Kentucky, I mean, I've never experienced that before in my life. Just to shake hands with somebody, pop your head out of a Walmart and make a deal with someone. He said his wife had passed away. He had a daughter. He's a single dad trying to make some money, and we were able to help him out. I gave him a great tip. It was incredible. This is exactly what I wanted when I moved here. I wanted that type of lifestyle. Not only that, but I think in order for us to get back to where we're supposed to be, number one, we have to understand that we need heaven. We need the assistance from Christ, Our Lady, the saints. We need the liturgy. We need to live out a life that's Catholic on a single basis. We need the prayers. We need to grow in virtue. Because I saw, what's his name, with the founder or the CEO of Barstool talking about this so-called, conservative guy who was talking about, we're going back, we're going back in time. I said, excuse me, sir, going back in time is being barbaric. Going back in time is when they used to sacrifice little children for their little gods. Abortion is going back. Going forward is
overturned.
Yeah, that's going forward. Progress is a society that is virtuous. That's progress. Even in a soul, you can tell a soul is moving forward when they have virtue, and that virtue is displayed outwardly. The person who's going backwards is the person who's barbaric. So I like what. Now here's the thing. For years and years, the left has won the culture war because they put labels that we're afraid of being called, anti-choice, things like that. For once, we fought back with groomers. They backed off. And if we could create a language that could make the natural law make sense to people, but I think if people's intellect are so diluted by their sin and lower faculties that it's hard to bring that person back. You need a lot of prayer, fasting for them. They need help from heaven to kind of change. God has to really touch that person's heart in order to get them to turn around. Because other than that, they're going to riot and loot so they can kill their own children. I mean, that's where we're at this point. I mean, how do you fix that? It's almost impossible through reason. So number one, my thing is you got to build virtue in yourself. You got to go back to the natural family, the nuclear family. You got to raise kids that are going to be virtuous and have logic and understand the life of the church and the liturgy and the liturgical calendar and such, and to be able to suffer well and to fast. So that way we're creating young men. Now, back to these soft institutions, organizations, you're okay paying $4,000 to move a mother across state to kill her own child, but you can't pay an extra $4,000 to a father so they can make it, or to bring an honest living, like the popes would say, a just wage for the father so that the mother can stay home and take care of her child. No, you can pay extra $4,000 to kill a child, but you can't pay extra $4,000 to a father to raise a child. This is how messed up it is. Being a business owner myself, we pay our employees a just wage, so they can go home and take care of their children. Doing it that way, being more focused, like Steve says, to your state legislatures, your sheriff. If we all focus locally, DC can send an order, and if the sheriff doesn't want to do it, they don't have the enforcement. We have to. And then next thing you know, DC is automatically powerless in a way. If we're going to raise decent human beings, that we're turning out to society so we don't burden society because of our own failure or own laziness, then we're going to create good citizens who will probably go in the military. And if DC says, hey, turn around and arrest your own citizens, they're going to say, no, I'm not doing that to my own citizens. The culture war has to be fought from the ground up. We need to play the long game. I don't know how much time we have before Christ comes. But at this point, we need to play the long game. It has to be among Catholic teaching, social teaching, and we have to lead the way. Pregnancy centers, parishes, everybody knows somebody who's got somebody who's pregnant, who's young, who made a mistake, and now they're pregnant. They have a life inside of them. The parish should come together and say, hey, guys, let's go ahead and have this committee. Let's put this money together. Let's get them what they need in employment. Who here can hire them. This is a pro-life nation. Then I think the left will start to realize, some of them maybe might come on our side and say, hey, the traditional Catholics are the ones that are really living a life of virtue. Then that's how we change hearts in that route. Versus trying to elect the president every 4 years.
Excellent points there, Flas.
Want to see
I want to jump on this.
You just said you want.
No, go with the video first, and we'll talk. We'll touch
protect
on
the
that.
Second Amendment. Do you want to see the court overturn Roe
Well,
v.
if
Wade?
we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
Donald has said he's in favor of defunding Planned Parenthood. He even supported shutting the government down to defund Planned Parenthood. I will defend Planned Parenthood. I will defend Roe v. Wade, and I will defend women's rights to make their own health care decisions. And we have come too far to have that turn back now. And indeed, he said women should be punished, that there should be some form of punishment for women who obtain abortions. And I could just not be more opposed to that kind of thinking.
If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby. Now, you can say that that's okay, and Hillary can say that that's okay, but it's not okay with me. Because based on what she's saying and based on where she's going and where she's been, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month on the final day. And that's not acceptable.
Well, that is not what happens in these cases. And using that kind of scare rhetoric is just terribly unfortunate. You should meet with some of the women that I've met with, women I've known over the course of my life. This is one of the worst possible choices that any woman and her family has to make. And I do not believe the government should be making it. And I can tell you the government has no business in the decisions that women make with their families in accordance with their faith.
I don't know if anybody's seen this before. I watched it this back in the day.
We had a whole plan that sold abortions, and it was called sex education. Break down their natural modesty, separate them from their parents and their values, and become the sex expert in their life so they turn to us when we would give them a low-dose birth control pill they would get pregnant on or a defective condom. Our goal was 3 to 5 abortions from every girl between the ages of 13 and 18.
The multitudes of people that have been hurt by abortion, it's just unfathomable.
That abortion is really, to me, the ultimate exploitation of women.
It is so shameful and secretive that many women don't tell anybody that they've had an abortion.
They won't say anything for 20, 30, 40, 55 years. They're so traumatized. Silence.
U.S. Senate report states, physicians, biologists, and other scientists agree that conception marks the beginning of the life of a human being that is alive and is a member of the human species. There is an overwhelming agreement on this point in countless medical, biological, and scientific writings.
Planned Parenthood is expanding now. They're building gigantic abortion clinics in anticipation of socialized medicine.
There's a lot of money involved. We never would take personal checks. We always encourage the ladies to bring cash.
Why is that?
So you don't have to report cash, friend.
When you're fighting for your life, you need to know what you're fighting for. And if what you're fighting for is life, how do you destroy a life in an effort to fight that fight? I'm fighting so hard to save myself that I'll kill someone else to get that.
I recognized I'd been involved in the death of 35,000 babies.
And the truth has really come out about what abortion does to women, let alone the unborn baby, our dead babies.
Back to what it was kind of what for Wise, what he was talking about brought me up to that about the businesses. Money. How much money is Pelosi getting from that? How much is Gruesome Newsom getting from those guys? I guarantee if someone looks up and finds how much Planned Parenthood and those guys are paying these guys, it's going to be astronomical numbers. It's all about money, blood money.
The thing that's going to make you more upset is most of the time the money that's coming from Planned Parenthood is coming from the feds. And that money's coming from the feds to Planned Parenthood to be dispersed back to Pelosi and Newsom and all those people.
Yeah.
You look at the amount of money
they're not
that
going to get paid as much. Their money is getting hurt from this.
Absolutely. Now, Fawaz brought up a great point about Catholic businesses and the ability to pay. That's another way that you promote a culture of life, is to not have a two-family income stream. Because once the woman gets in, this is all the evils of capitalism. This is like an hour-long speech I could give. Once you get into the evils of capitalism, they always say, oh, they don't pay women enough. Well, they want women in there because once they get them to a certain age outside of their fertility window, like I said, this gets real. Once they get outside the fertility window, they have nothing left to be devoted to except to the company. And then they become those wage slaves, and they stay there, and they don't have kids, so the company pays them more, because what that money does, it goes back into the company. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that is another way that women will be like, oh, well, my career is so important that, yeah, I'll have an abortion because I'll just have a kid later. They usually don't end up having kids later. And so Fawaz brings up a great point that part of the Catholic teaching is to pay a just wage, is to be able to provide, so the father can say to the mother, listen, you don't have to worry. I mean, we'll worry about, all this other kind of stuff, but I will provide and I will bring this money home, and then we'll figure it out. But because we live in the capitalist system, and I know it may sound a little AOC here, so give me a second to explain all of it. But within the capitalist system, instead of a distributive system, capitalism by default encourages abortions in our current climate. And I know some people will be like, that's not true. Capitalism is the freedom, blah, 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 blah. Well, capitalism has us here now. Capitalism is paying $4,000 to get babies murdered. So that's one of the ways we're not going to be able to get out of capitalism while we're in this current system. But if we can follow the example, if you can afford it, if you can work I'm blessed to be able to work for a Catholic in my church, and all of these things that I've had to deal with the last 2 years, haven't had to deal with them, because Mike's like, yeah, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're fine. So I don't want to be like, oh, start your own Catholic business, because some people are like, I just can't. But maybe there's somebody out there that that's part of your parish that has a job. Maybe it's not your dream job, but maybe it's the ability that you can provide, and you have to worry about this stuff. That's another thing, is we Catholics have to get back into running businesses and being found pillars of the community by doing stuff like that. I don't know. Does that make sense to either one of you? One of you can respond. Steve, you can be on mute too, because that would be great.
Yeah, this is getting back to Christian social principles and all. I mean, what's the G.K. Chesterton line? The problem with capitalism is there's not enough capitalists. It's basically, it's getting out of that mindset of having to be enslaved to your job. This is what was the feminism freed you from your house to be enslaved by your boss. So you can
slaves. Yeah.
So you get in your car, you drop your kid off at daycare, let the state run raise your kid. The school raise your kid. You're going in now. You drive in, sit in a car for how long to get the commutes. Now you go into a building. You have your boss as your now new husband, your wage slave in there. Then you drive home. You pick up your kid from daycare. You might eat with them for a couple minutes. I see people. If we go somewhere for lunch, you see mom and their kid. They're both looking at their dumb phones and no carrying on conversation. It's just it's bringing back to the local area. Great. You can go to name a bank or whatever, or you can name the big bank, the Allied or something. But they're all in on. They're going to give the Planned Parenthood. They're going to give to the LGBT guys. Is there a Catholic group around? If not, can you start one? There's always. I mean, not to say it's tough enough. There's no excuses. There is none. I mean, there's always a way. You don't want to do this, okay? It might be more inconvenient, but do it. I mean. Do you not want to, like Dick's is giving money out to send people to other states? Okay, it's a sporting goods place. Is there other sporting goods areas to get from? Sure. You can go Play It Again. Maybe, I don't know what Play It Again's doing, but find out. Amazon, obviously Amazon, everyone's using Amazon for something. Okay, is there something on Amazon that you don't need to get from Amazon? You can go to like a book. Can you go to Sophia.com or tan.com? Can you get the books from their websites, mediatricspress.com? Instead of going on Amazon, you get it right from the store, which pays them more than it would Amazon. Amazon takes a lot more from you. They don't get as much, but it's more convenient. So you got the app. It's easier to do. So it's breaking away from the convenience. Fawaz has talked about that many times of virtues. We were watching the series 1883 or 1885? And,
on Paramount?
Yeah. And Megan had it on, and I was looking at it going, how many people could do that today? They had a commercial on afterwards. You see this millennial walking down with a ice cream cone in his phone or something like that, and his nice clothes, and going, man, you just saw Tim McGraw's character, roughing it, and then it goes into this guy eating an ice cream cone and going, man, they would have ate him up and spit him out before he took 5 feet. The guy would have been.
I don't think there's any better
15 minutes.
example, Steve, of how far we've fallen. If you look at our dogs, like our dogs used to be hunters that would find like mice and rip stuff up. Now they're being pushed around in carts and baby strollers. So that's kind of like to your point.
But as Fawaz was saying, the church leads the way. It's a mess out there because there's a mess in here. So we got to be, as brought up in the St. Basil write-up, the salt loses the flavor. You don't need a tyrant. Now we get that flavor back, and then we could change society just by doing the right thing, learning the faith, living the faith, smiling, just a smile. My bride, someone, why is that guy joyful? That guy, you might have smiled at somebody that who's a baby killer fan, is a big fan of LGBT, and all this is crumbling around. His world is crumbling around you, but you smile at him going, why is that guy happy? Why is that? It's in their mind. You can't get rid of that picture of a smile or an idea or that kind gesture that could lead to somebody's conversion down the road. And then you pray for a St. Philip to enter their lives and bring them in. If we would just focus, how many people watch something, if we all focus on our local area to convert our local area, in the grand scheme of things, you have little segments popping up, growing. That eventually will take over. It's that leaven that they talk about. But you got to start with just one. You can't start with 4,000, one. And then the next day do it again. And the next day do it again. That way we change society that way. You won't change society by a pen. Jonathan was going to bring up something great about changing the law. If you change a law that disrupts everyone, you're going to see violence. You're going to see it hurt more. But if we change, if you read Garnier on Jean Vianney, he talks about ending all these nightclubs that he had in those days. There's just these bars of real repute type deal. It wasn't like he signed a bill. He converted their hearts.
True. But speaking of conversions and the faith leading the way, responses from the bishops here in these United States of Amazon, not really great, and just on time. Jonathan jumps back in with us. I'm guess Jonathan and I are playing tennis with the ghost of the internet at this point, trying to make sure they won't keep us down. I know that much. But the idea, as we were talking about that, John, about cultural influence and Catholicism, and the people that we look to lead us, the bishops, the responses weren't what we were hoping for yesterday.
Yeah, to say the least. The thing that a good holy priest reminded me, though, is that, and I should have been on this really, considering that I've kind of given my adult life to the study of patristics, but that the church fathers really focus on how much good we can do for the bishops by, as a good child would do to, let's say a drunken father or something, is remind him of his duties to us as a true father, as a shepherd, kind of what the other meaning of the word bishop there, besides just being a father of the diocese, but also being a true shepherd and letting him know that we are sheep and how much we do count on him, but also that there's we have a benefit that, you could say in the natural, the way this metaphor usually works about sheep to shepherd, that doesn't work quite as well as the familial metaphor, and that's that we can actually pray and fast for our bishops and help them gain for them graces, or at least the opportunity to accept graces, God willing, so that they can do better next time, or actually improve their management, spiritual management, especially of diocese. So yeah, it was not very impressive yesterday, overall, I'd say. And so it's a reminder that we really need to fast and pray more for our bishops, and even for our federal civil leaders, and for those poor states that don't have the good state leadership that we do in many of the states where we all are coming from. Got to pray for our civil leaders, praying fast for them.
Yeah, I think this is a really good topic to wind out on. And I think Jonathan brings up a really good point, that we can continue to look at the bishops and be like, oh, woe is me. They're not responding the way we want them to. What are we doing? This is terrible. Just understand, guys, these are the same people that shut down the churches 2 years ago for COVID. These are the same people that are, I've mentioned it. I know Steve's mentioned it. I know the other people have mentioned it. They're under the gun right now in these blue states, because they had that cover for 2 years, for 50 years. They didn't have to make a stand on Roe, because they're like, oh, well, the Supreme Court has said it. So, but now they have to make their choice. Now they have to be the leader in their state, and starting in their cities and moving outwards. So John has a great point, that we can sit back and we can be like, oh, these guys are terrible. Or we can pray for them. And if you feel so inclined, if there's one near you, see what you can do to help support them right now, because they're going to be, I mean, I live in Texas, but my diocese stretches from Austin all the way to Waco. So, and they're all in Austin. The bishop is in Austin, and that's one of the places that's metaphorically on fire. I mean, right now it could be literally on fire. I don't know. I haven't checked. But Flaz, the idea of, we have two choices. We can lament our bishop's response, or we can galvanize and support them. It really is incumbent on American Catholics especially. What do you want to do? Do you want to whine on Twitter, or do you want to get into the fight and help your bishop out?
Yeah, there's the bishop. This is what we have at the moment, whether you consider him to be a good bishop or not. Catholic Church is based on the hierarchy and the authority. The bishop is the authority. Sometimes we have bad bishops that we have to step through. If the bishop asks you to do something sinful, you have the right to refuse, because your responsibility to God comes first. But yeah, it's disappointing to see some of the bishops. I mean, Bishop Cardinal McElroy from San Diego put out, I read a statement. He said that the ruling was good. I knew there was going to be a but there, and his but was, we got to focus on having socialism in order for us to fix, which I don't agree with. I think the federal government should have more power to distribute funds and child care and things like that. I think we should go the opposite way. I think we should get rid of child care and have mothers taking care of their children at home. That's the only way you're going to have a decent society, to be honest with you. And now you're just turning your children over to the state and having them raise kids and, barking like dogs and acting like cats, like what's happening in most classrooms. It's unfortunate. It's hard for me to talk about this. I try to stay away from it, because they are a bishop in the public sphere. I don't want to say things. So my advice is always pray and fast for your bishop. I mean, our bishop here in Lexington, he was all gung-ho about the Pride Month and talking about the marginalized. I mean, who's the more marginalized? Unborn babies. And think that you'd be happy about this decision and what the state of Kentucky is doing. But all I can do is pray and fast. That's all I can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I think you and I talked about this the other day. I think it was on another show or one of the others, that we have to be careful too with the bishop's statements and with our brothers and sisters in Christ who tend to lean more to the left, who are going to try and instigate some flame wars with us, whether it be on Twitter or in parishes, and calling us, backwards and all these other kind of things, like you were saying. Got to be careful and not engage with a hateful intent. Now, I know I say that because I am the most sarcastic person on this panel, and most of the time I go running into these things. more likely to gaslight people than not. So I have to take my own advice. I'm saying that as the first, I will cast the stones at my own house before I start casting them anywhere else.
Why am I thinking of this Dennis Leary song? I can't play
it. I mean, you could spell it out, though. I mean, he does. I am from the Northeast, and I am a Rhode Islander, so it's pretty much in my nature to be that way. But I do prove my point more often than not.
Just a regular Joe
with a regular Joe with what is it? Headlights with baby seal eyes. So yeah. So Steve, if you want to wrap up your final point on all this kind of stuff and mention the bishops and your thoughts on that. Now, I'm not trying to call you into sin on any of that stuff. Like,
everyone's probably heard. Yeah, people hate what I keep saying about that. We blame us. I mean, look in the mirror. If you have bad bishops, bad priests, it's the John Hughes quote. It's the surest sign of God's wrath when he sends us priests that are name only, then indeed it's on us, the laity. We're not worthy of having good leaders. The problem is the real pandemic of leadership. There's really good priests out there. There's some good bishops. There's some good bishops out there. There's some bad ones. Not all of them are bad. Not all of them are great. We have to pray more and fast more and do penance more to build them up than break them down. It's easy to tear apart. It's hard to build up. It's easy to send that terrible tweet out slamming a bishop or talk bad about him. It's hard to, spend an hour at your house where no one can see it and do adoration or penance for them. It's that whole sports mentality thing again. I keep bringing it up and people hate it that don't play. What do you do? How bad do you want it? I'll take that athlete, the guy that really wants it, that will practice in the dark, that will run stairs when no one sees him, will do all that extra stuff that the coach don't see. In a sense, that's kind of like the spiritual life. And you're doing things that that no one sees. If you're going to adoration or going to the butchery clinic and nobody sees you, no one knows you're doing it. It might be one or two people that might be there, or it might be one person that sees you at an adoration chapel, or it might be nobody at your house. Or how do you act during that time when no one seeing and no one else sees what you're doing, and you're offering it up for the priests or the bishops to strengthen them? I'd rather take that than someone that promotes themselves online and says, look at me, look how great I'm doing, and might
Steve, I'm right here, buddy.
I'm somebody left and right, or how uncharitable they look and make us look bad on social media. So give me that guy. It's just like a player. Give me that guy that's busting it when no one else knows that he's doing it. In the long run, he's going to win. We have to take that mentality, and there's not a lot of people that do that. And we're all still working on that. Every one of us still works on it. You read about the saints that do it. Like I'm reading about Saint Simon Stylus, and man, he climbed a doggone pillar and stood there because of how bad he thought he was and the sins he did in his earlier life, and not telling everyone to go up on top of pillars for a week and not eat till a Sunday. But that kind of mindset, we're still in that. Yeah, it stinks. Oh well. We're going to worry about our stomachs on Friday, and we're having an argument what we're going to eat on a solemnity or anything. We're kind of like running was an Augustine line of running hard but on the wrong path. And pray for your bishops, sacrifice for them, sacrifice for the as Jonathan brought up, or Fawaz brought up, and you pray for your political leaders and your governor, your politicians in your county and city. And your president, yes. You got to pray and do sacrifice for them. Isn't that what charity is? Willing the good of the other? We should want Biden to be in heaven. We should want Pelosi to convert and be in heaven. That's a hard one to think. And then what Rick was talking about, the flag. We should treat the Blessed Sacrament way better than we treat the flag. Imagine the flag. Yeah, as you said, talk about the pledge. I remember being at a Knights of Columbus meeting, and if you touched that flag, they were going to butcher you. But I had no problem when I talked about, communion on the hand and the crumbles of particles fall on the ground, because I would, at Mass, leap over the area because I was thinking, all right, if I can get to here to there, then I know in my head I didn't step on our Lord. Just not to be scruple on top of that, but to put an idea. Someone asked me, why are you doing that? And then I told the guy why I was doing that, and he stopped. So it's just getting that conversation rolling on that. It goes back to conversion, but it's how much do we want it? It's really, do we want our state to be Catholic? Do we want our city to be Catholic? or we just talk about it. We talk a good game, just like everything else, but in the fact of doing it, we kind of stink at the actual actions of it.
Yeah. And I think really the point of this stream was to get people's minds outside of, yes, I hope you celebrated yesterday. It was a hard-earned victory, but it's not done. Not at the Catholic level, not at the state level, certainly not at the federal level. And so what we're looking to do is, if you have any ideas, leave them in the comment section below about what we can do to promote a culture of life at the local and state level. And as Fawaz and John said, if you do it at the local and the state level, it's got to trickle up eventually. I mean, hey, nobody would have believed you in 2000 if you said, hey, Donald Trump's going to run for president and he's going to get Roe v. Wade overturned. You would have been in an insane asylum until about 2022 if you said that he was going to run as a Republican, win the presidency, and get Roe outlawed. So,
well, it's true. Remember when AO was her face, Amy Coney Barrett got nominated, people were trashing her, saying, "Oh, she won't do this." I go, guys, she's a states' rights lady. This is right up her alley. And they were, no, she'll end up not doing it.
Yeah.
There we go.
You can't, all things are possible with God. And that's where we really need to focus. Does anybody have?
You mind if I say something?
Yeah, jump in, Fuss.
Sorry, I was inspired by what Steve was talking about, and also with Jonathan. Just in the trad movement, I'm seeing this a lot. Is just this dispensation of despair. Anything good that happens, it's always, well, it's the enemy tricking us. It's like, no, let's be joyous here. Let's have this. Sometimes when you have a dispensation of despair, you get pleasure out of despairing every single time. When the lower faculties get attached to despair, let's get away from that a little bit. And not everything is planned. Not every single thing in the world is there's some coincidences. Let's just take it as it is, and let's have some joy and the disposition of joy, because Christ has already won it for us. We just got to finish the race. But this whole idea of hey, Roe's dead. It's just a plan from the enemy. He's going to get us again. And I'm just like, well, at this point, should we ever rejoice for anything?
And take the momentum and run with it. That's the main thing.
That's it. That's it.
This should make everyone, all right, the behemoth went down. Now, in your mindset, let's get the states.
That's right.
It'll be easy after now.
Well, also to kind of come back around, for people in red states and people that have the trigger laws, don't get complacent, don't get fat and lazy, because
that used to be even easier, right? You already got it in, you already done the hard work. Now keep it that way.
Yeah, Fawaz is correct. They're going to flood these places with as many people as they can to try and swing the state legislatures. If you don't think so, they spent $70 million in 2018 to try and get Beto O'Rourke into the governorship. I mean, only a guy who's as stupid as Meta O'Rourke could spend $70 million and lose. But they have money. They have the money to do it. Steve talks about it all the time. Like, they take money from California and they'll pour it into your race and Representative 2 in North Carolina that everybody's like, who is that? They know who it is, and they know how important it is. So,
there's another sports analogy: full court blitz.
Yeah,
use it on Minnesota. I know people that are in Minnesota. Go after it. North Carolina, we got to go after it. Virginia, go at it. And now you don't have to worry about March for Lives in DC anymore. Folk, put everything into getting Virginia switched. Rhode Island, that should be switched easily. Let's go to Rhode Island. We should be able to move to Rhode Island and switch that within a year.
Well, if you had like 20, if 25 of us moved to Rhode Island, you probably could get it switched in a year.
Yeah, that should be an easy one. But get started. You got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you completely. They got a great FSSP up there at St. Mary's on Broadway in Providence, so they got a great foundation there. That's a great place to start. But before we wrap it up, anybody else have anything they'd like to comment on any of this stuff? I'll take the silence as a no. So that's it for this episode of News from the Pew. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, and share so everybody can hear this awesome show. I am your host, Rick Barrett. Now, always, and forever, Viva Cristo Rey.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, recording another one of these from Tim Pool's bathtub. From Tim Pool's couch, Tim Pool's bathtub, without Tim Pool in it. I've been crashing at his house for a while, if you've noticed, if you've seen. We're gonna be going through some libs of TikTok, which is short for liberals of TikTok.
Hey, TikTok. Do you ever wake up in the morning and think you just want to burn it all to the ground?
No, that's not a normal thing, a normal person. I like how she asked that as if it's a relatable question. Can you ever wake up and want to put a hamster in the microwave? No, that's you. Like, you know when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're really thirsty? Like, you know when you wake up and you want to burn it all down? Because you can't sacrifice babies to Moloch. As she's wearing her Princess Leia t-shirt, dude, these people are absurd. They dress like children, and they speak like demons from hell.
You think the global protests around George Floyd were big?
He's about to defend Roe v. Wade.
You just fucking wait when you launch an attack on 50% of the American population.
Are you threatening a mostly peaceful protest? You cannot pretend that these like BLM Antifa protests were peaceful and then threaten people with more of them. If you think we were mostly peaceful last time, just you wait. We're gonna be extra mostly peaceful, bro.
There's only one solution to this, to all of this, because it's all interconnected. Starts with V, ends with E, and it's not vote.
Oh man, I would be really scared if you tried to enact some V and ends with E against me. Bro, I would literally tug on your earrings. That's it, you're out.
Secondly, if you supported the use of violence to defend abortion clinics when the state recognized abortion rights and the cops were doing it, you should have zero problems with people outside the law now doing the exact same thing.
Now this guy, I joked about being scared of the last guy. This guy in the Star Wars shirt? What is it with the Star Wars shirts? We need to put a hold on all Star Wars fans until we can figure out what the hell is going on. They're not sending their best. I don't think you want this to be brought to the territory of violence, my friend. I don't think that would be beneficial for you personally in your Star Wars shirt. What, are you gonna hit me with your toy lightsaber?
Once I get my double A's in this, you'll be sorry.
You're gonna throw your Han Solo action figure at me?
It was mint in the box until you disrespected women. No, Mother, I won't be watching Antique Roadshow tonight. Record it. I have to go protect an abortion clinic in my Wookiee mask.
If they actually do this, yeah, that would be the time where rioting would be okay.
What is he pinching? Is that the point he thinks he has?
The time where rioting would be okay. I got the pitchforks, you get the gas and the torches.
Not with Biden's gas prices, buddy.
For everyone out there with uterus, get on Amazon, buy Plan B generic. It's about $10.
If you have uterus, get some abortion pills. You're gonna need that. Like, what is this, cold medicine? It's like, oh man, I woke up, I'm pregnant. Woke up this morning, was pregnant, can't come into work today.
You know what? I'll just go ahead and say it.
Say it, bro.
Roe v. Wade gets overturned, I am getting a vasectomy.
Oh no! You're telling me, no! Bro, I'm sure that's very upsetting for your mother to hear. I wish you wouldn't, actually. I think that's a sad thing to do.
The white women that keep saying that it's going to be like Handmaid's Tale when Roe v. Wade is...
Wait, white women are saying that?
...is overturned. Please shut up.
Okay, based.
Please shut up.
Okay, you know what? I like this one.
Because people of color have been experiencing Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, come on!
Listen to Black, brown, and indigenous women.
Like you. Shaved half her head, now she's an Apache. I don't need this. Look at her shaking her fist.
I'll get you, kids! It's the last thing I do!
No, you will not, ma'am. Not in a red state.
I'll abort you babies if it's the last thing I do!
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as you all very well know, I am not just a taker, I am a maker. I'm gonna contribute. I'm not just gonna knock other people's memes, I'm gonna make my own. Alright, we got this guy. This looks like a cool guy. Alright. Okay. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Alright, love it, love it. We're gonna drop you here. Mwah!